All right, so now let's talk about the differences between the UI systems in Godot and Unity. So if you are familiar with Unity's Godot's UI system, so all you have to do is come over here and add a UI. So for example, if I just want to add, let's say, I think text should be fine. So for the first time, it asks for importing the Text Mesh Pro Essential package. So let's add that, and now I have a text that has been added, and let's just set the scaling to something like that. And for the canvas, for example, let's just set it to 1920 by 1080 default size, and for the scaling I'll set it to 0.5. So now if I press Alt and Shift and middle click, so now you can see the text is now at the center. And for the camera, let's just leave everything as default. So now you can see my text has been added, and if I want to change the position of the text, I can do it simply. Let me make this screen a little bit bigger for you guys to take a clear look. So now if I want, I can type in hello, I am from Unity. And obviously, since it is a Text Mesh Pro, you can set various different things that you want, change the size, you can even change the width and height respectively, right? So that is the default behavior. Now there is one problem with this, and that is the business logic. I mean the game logic of your game, the whatever game objects that you will be having in your scene, and the UI is, both the things are going to reside in the same place in this hierarchy. So fortunately, Unity has introduced a new toolkit system where you can use this UI toolkit, UI builder toolkit, and use this to separate out the UI component and the game logic. And if you are like me, so probably you are still sticking around with this old UI system in Unity. So that's about Unity. That's how you add the different objects in Unity. For example, if I want to add, let's say maybe an input field, so I can go ahead and add that. Let's change a few things like this. And now if I drag it a little bit up, and let's just set the scale something like this, and if I hit play, so now you can see there is one text that I have added and one input field that I have added, and I can obviously write anything that I want, right? So now what about Godot? How we can achieve this thing in Godot? So now let's switch back to Godot, and here we have our 3D view. So now for the UI, which is a completely 2D system, because UI needs to be there in 2D, and obviously you can add the UI in 3D as well, but that is not as a part of this scope for this tutorial. So for adding any UI, simply what we can do is we can create a new blank scene. And for this scene, as I had told you earlier, if we want something to happen in Godot in a specific component or something specific, we have to think about what is going to be the root of that node, right? Because everything is node based. So here I want to create a UI, so I'll use this user interface node as my root. Okay, so now you will see that the mode has been switched to 2D because we are going to design our entire UI in 2D. So let's just name this as UI, and if I hit Control S to save it, so let's just try to save this with main UI, something like that. Again, I'm not using any folder structure here, just want to show you the major difference. So now my UI panel has been added, and this is like a blank canvas kind of panel which has been added. So obviously I need to add child components in order to make the system work. So for example, if I want to add a text node, so here we call this as label. So now if you, let's say, don't know what these nodes are, so you can go ahead over here in the control and try to expand that. So whatever node that comes into this green color, so this is all the nodes which is dedicated for UI things, right? And the control node is going to be the uh, kind of the uppermost root node of any UI that you will be creating. So it's always a good idea to first add a control node, okay, and then add your child node accordingly. So now the label thing, which is the Unity, if you compare it with the Unity, so we have the text mesh pro text field, which is there. So for Godot we have label. Okay, so let's add a label, and for the content, let me add hello from Godot world. Okay, now for the placement, what we can do is here we can choose some presets, like if we want to center it or make it center in the screen like this. Okay, and now let's hit Ctrl S to save. Okay, now let's say that we want to add the UI, and we have added it over here. If I just simply press play, so now you can see the UI is not there, the text is not there, and that is because we have created a separate section, a separate node for the UI, and now we have not added it in our main scene. So if you compare it with Unity, so here with the new UI toolkit system, what Unity is trying to implement here is to be able to separate out the UI logic and the game logic. So Godot is doing that by default, right? So obviously I can go over here and I can add a control node which is valid, right? But using the node system in Godot, it's very much clear and very much efficient to create UI outside and then add it as a component in our main scene. So now that I have added this UI, what I can do is I can add this UI component to my main scene. But there is only one difference, is that instead of just adding this like this, for example, let me show you. If I hit this chain icon and I add this menu UI over here, if I hit Ctrl S to save it and try to play this, so you can see the UI has added. Okay, but just to keep everything tidy, what we can do is add a child node first, and we gonna call this as canvas layer. So what canvas layer is going to do is, basically canvas layer is telling the Godot engine that, hey, I want to draw a layer on top of whatever you are viewing on top of that screen. So now as a child of that canvas layer, I can easily add my UI. So this is generally a good practice, okay, although it does not make that much of difference, but it is a good practice to add a canvas layer first and then add your UI after that. So now if I hit play, I can see a very similar result, right? So let's say similarly, if we want to add a text box, something like this in Godot, what we can do is simply come over here. Okay, and let's try to place this one in the top, right? And now for the UI, let's add something else, which is an input node. So the text edit is similar to the input node in Unity. So I'm gonna add this text node, and let's add a placeholder text called enter something. Okay, and let's go ahead and define this size. So I'm going to go to the layout, and let's add a custom minimum size. So I'm gonna add in 300 by, let's say, 80, so something similar size, and let's place it in the center of the screen. Press Ctrl S to save it, press play, and now I have added this UI, and obviously I can type whatever I want. So this is a major difference between the UI system in Unity and Godot. Obviously there is much more to see and learn about the UI. So do let me know in the comments below if you want to see more on the UI part, so I'll make a separate video for that. Okay, so now let's move to the next part where we see the input system differences between Unity and Godot.